The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, where you been? Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I'm Stephen Means, and that's Stefan Krajisnik, and this is your Monday Leave No Doubt pod, where we try to answer the question every single week: did Ohio State leave no doubt with how it played on the field? But also sometimes it can be about bigger picture stuff. And obviously, throughout the season, it does kind of evolve into that. Ohio State 7-0, 4-0 in the Big Ten, heading into its second bye week. They are the number one team in the country. When they return in 2 weeks, they'll play Penn State. Assuming they win that game, they're probably going to be number one in the first college football playoff rankings that come out the Tuesday following that Penn State game. It's always fun. They always end up playing Penn State the Saturday before the playoff rankings come out. But they also don't play Penn State for a couple of years, so I guess they don't have to worry about that. So here's what we're doing today. We're splitting this up into 3 different parts. It's essentially what this Leave No Doubt pod typically is: defense, special teams, offense, and then Julian Sand, but it's more from a bigger picture perspective, trying to project some things, trying to have some conversations about some things that I think are important for Ohio State. Some of these things will be positive. Some of these things will be negative. Some of these things, I guess it just depends on how you feel about those things. It will decide whether or not they are positive or negative. And Stefan, the place I want to start with the positive. So we're going to start with the defense, which also is going to have some negatives because I split up defense and special teams, because if not, we're going to spend 20 minutes here going, hey, the defense is great. Yeah, defense is great. Yeah, the defense is great. Jermaine Matthews, Lorenzo Styles, Devin Sanchez. This is, I think, the ultimate good problem that I think a defense could have, where the guy who's doing a job isn't doing it poorly, but there just might be a guy who is elite at it. And if you felt like Devin Sanchez the last 2 weeks, he had some freshman mistakes, right, in both of those games. But for the most part, I don't think Devin Sanchez was enough of a liability to where, like, you can't at least explore it now that you have 2 weeks to do so. What would you do if you were Tim Walton and Matt Patricia and Matt Guerrieri? What would you do coming out against Penn State? How would you handle that trio dynamic in terms of who's the starter and who's going to play the most snaps?
Yeah, I feel like I've been pretty vocal on the pod about my thoughts on Jermaine Matthews and everything that he can do in that slot role. And to be quite honest, this was a conversation we had after the Illinois game, and I'm not sure the Wisconsin game changed a whole lot for me because Jermaine didn't play a ton of snaps in the slot, kind of just the way the game dictated Ohio State. I mean, we saw a lot of let me start off by saying this. I thought rewatching the game and looking at some of the PFF scores, I thought Peyton Pierce balled out against Wisconsin. I thought he looked really good. He looked the part of someone who was hyped up in the offseason as a starting caliber linebacker. So I thought he was great against Wisconsin. And as a result, we didn't see a ton of Jermaine in the slot. But when he was there, I thought he was pretty good. I thought Devin Sanchez was pretty good. His PFF coverage grade was pretty low against Wisconsin, but I think that's mostly the result of the penalty that he had, which I don't think it was a penalty. I just think that was pretty soft. And we don't got to bail out really bad receivers for Wisconsin.
I don't think he actually ever touched him. I think the dude just slipped over his own feet.
Yeah. If anything, like they tangled each other up, and like that's not a penalty.
Yeah.
That's not a penalty. So I would keep rolling with Jermaine getting a decent amount of reps in the slot. I'm not saying that Lorenzo Styles has no role for this team, and I think he's still an intriguing piece. Whether it be dime packages or just the way that he can kind of move around between the nickel spot and the safety, as opposed to Jermaine, who's maybe more of a rotation between nickel and outside corner.
Yeah.
It's a different skill set. So I still think there's usage for Lorenzo Style, and I think we're going to see him play, some important snaps for this team down the stretch and in the playoff. But I just think there's an element to Jermaine's game where this defense is so good, but it's clear that, especially going into Illinois, Ryan Day and Matt Patricia made turnovers kind of a focal point, right? Like this defense had done everything great. They hadn't forced a ton of turnovers, right? And I think a guy like Jermaine can do stuff like that. He can wreak havoc and create some turnovers, right? We've seen it, whether it be interceptions that he's gotten or past breakups that have led to, tip balls that are interceptions for others. We know that he can get in there and force some fumbles as well. Like, I just think he's such a difference maker for you that if that's the one thing you feel like this defense is lacking, or at least that's what it seemed like Ryan Day felt, I would continue to give Jermaine Matthews some snaps there in the slot. And I think Devin Sanchez is showing that he's at least capable enough to where you're not losing a ton by moving Jermaine over. So I think moving forward, I would continue to give Jermaine more and more reps in the slot and let him be a difference maker.
You're also not playing a wide receiver who's going to kill Devin Sanchez as a true freshman. And obviously, this isn't like an always slow play Devin Sanchez, and he was always going to take Lorenzo Styles' position in terms of who was playing more snaps, Lorenzo Styles at nickel or Devin Sanchez at outside corner. But I do understand when you're playing Texas week 1 and they got Ryan Wingo and some other guys, you don't want to just throw Devin Sanchez to the wolves. Even the Washington game, Denzel Boston is out there, right? You don't want to put a true freshman out there in a situation where a team might hunt him. Hank Betty played in the slot. So, I mean, Jermaine Matthews just kind of locked that down. I just think from both perspectives, there's the Jermaine Matthews needs to be in positions to constantly get his hand on the ball, because if he gets his hand on the ball, sometimes it ends up in an interception, right? He's got his own interception. He's got if Sonny Styles gets his hand underneath the ball, interception against Texas. Peyton Pierce got his first career interception. That was Jermaine Matthews is doing. I don't think the one this past Saturday that Sonny got I don't think Jermaine was part of that play though. But it's the fact that he's got the strip sack, right? He has caused more turnovers than literally anybody else on this team. And you want him around the ball as much as possible. But if you're pairing that with 5-star true freshman who is getting more and more every single week and getting more and more comfortable, and you're not necessarily worried about he's got some marquee matchup out there where teams might start hunting him. Okay, then once you do get on the stage with some teams who've got some pretty good receivers, maybe Devin Sanchez is ready to go. So I don't think there's a wrong decision here. I just think there's a decision that more maximizes what it is you want from this defense. And you have 4 guys on this defense where every week you sit down in a meeting and go, how can we get these guys around the ball as much as possible? Caleb, Arvell, Sonny, and Jermaine. So the more you can do that, the better long-term for your defense. Because the next thing I have on here is there anything else they can tweak, or is Patricia already perfect? And I know that's I'm being facetious there, but seriously, is this the only thing? Like, is there anything else about this defense right now where you're like, I mean, it's not a problem, but what if we did this instead of this? What else? Is there anything else with this defense that's actually of any level of concern, even if the concern level is 0.5 out of?
Yeah, I mean, not a ton. The interception by Sonny, I think it was Jalen McClain who,
okay.
I don't even think he was credited with a PBU. I don't know what the Wisconsin receiver. I think he just didn't catch it, and it hit off his shoulder and went into Sonny Styles' hands. I continue to kind of keep an eye on the pass rush, not as a level of concern, but like I'm interested to see where it goes after conversations that we've had with Kenyatta. Recently it's clear that he feels like there's another level to his game, and if there is, if there's another level to that opposite of what Caden Curry's doing right now we're talking about what Jack and JT did last year in the playoff, and what a difference that made for Ohio State down the playoff against some good quarterbacks and some good teams. I think you had posted either on social media or on our texters the stats that Caden Curry's putting up right now is just absurd, right? It's comparable to the start Chase Young had to his Heisman campaign, right? So like
Yeah.
Caden Curry is playing at such a high level that if Kenyatta can kind of, I don't want to say play better because he's doing what Ohio State's asking him to do, but if he unlocks another element of his game where he's getting after the passer, and I think he might, he might have some opportunities against Penn State to do so. Nico and Bryce make that a little bit tougher, right? Because those are guys who have some mobility. But then you look at the playoff and there's some guys that they could face who aren't necessarily the most mobile quarterbacks. A guy like Kenyatta Jackson, if he's unleashing some of those pass rush moves that he's talked about, there's another element to this defense.
Through 7 games, Caden Curry's got 34 tackles, 10 TFL, 7 sacks, a pass breakup, a fumble recovery, and 26 pressures and 296 snaps. Through 7 games in 2019, Chase Young had 23 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks, a pass breakup, 3 forced fumbles, and 30 pressures and 269 snaps. It's just, I cannot believe how good Caden Curry is, but I also cannot believe that none of us are paying attention to how good Caden Curry is. He's just not shiny. It's so matter of fact that he has those numbers, right? Because he's not Caleb, Arvell, Sonny, or Jermaine. He's not in that category, and he's not the former top 100 recruit from South Florida who looks like if he pops, he's a top 20 draft pick, right? He's not new and shiny like Jalen McClain, where it's like, oh, he just jumps people in the roster. He's not Devin Sanchez, where he's a 5-star freshman getting opportunity. He's not Cade McDonald or Edric, right? He's just, he's made plays his entire career. But seeing him get an opportunity to do so as a front line guy, he's just not talked about enough. He's just not talked about enough. And and I get it. Defensive end, there's a lot of good players around the country, and physically, he might not have the same NFL draft traits as those guys, but production is production. And I don't think there's a more productive defensive end in the country than what Caden Curry is doing. And he's doing that in spite of the defensive line not necessarily being asked to do those things. What did you think of the conversation Kenyatta was having last week when he was talking about all that? Like having conversations with Matt Patricia about wanting the chance to be able to use pass rush moves and do more than just be a do-your-job guy.
I thought it was great. I thought it was a great glimpse into like the relationship Matt Patricia has with these players and vice versa. I mean, you would rather that than Kenyatta be petty or upset and just start doing things on his own, right? Or just be holding, a grudge against the coaching staff, right? Like the fact that he's willing to go to Matt Patricia and say, hey, what about this? What about this? Because to this point, he's doing everything you want. And now, he's recommending that they add something different. And I don't think that's a bad idea. So I think it's a sign of the relationships Patricia has with the players and the relationship, vice versa, as I said. But I think also it's a glimpse into like the respect that Ohio State has for a guy like Kenyatta Jackson, right? Like they respect his opinion, even if he hasn't played as many snaps early as in his career as we saw, Jack and JT get early in their career. He's still a guy who's been around and he knows Ohio State and he waited his turn. So like that's a guy who's part of the culture that Ohio State has. And I think that's great. I think more players should do that. I mean, I guarantee Caleb Downs does a ton of that. I guarantee Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese do a ton of that, where they notice things and they talk to their coaches and say, hey, what if we did this? What if we did this? Because at the end of the day, they have a different perspective than the coaches, right? The coaches can watch the all-22 and say this is the right thing to do. But if you're the one down on the field with eyes on the field, you're going to see things differently as well. So it would be more of a problem if like Kenyatta was just recklessly rushing the passer and then going to Matt Patricia and being like, let me keep doing this when Ohio State's not asking him to do that. I think this is better where he's doing his job to the best of his abilities. And now he's asking, hey, let's put some more on the plate. I can give you some more and be a guy like in the same way that I talked about Jermaine Matthews. You can talk about Kenyatta Jackson about being a guy who makes a difference. So I think he's been great just in general. It doesn't really show up. Like, obviously, it doesn't show up on the box score, but like even when you're watching a game, it might not show up when you're watching it. But like, if you understand what he's being asked to do, and I think, in terms of draft stock, it's probably good for him to, talk publicly about some of the stuff that he's being asked to do because it explains, why some of those numbers don't pop necessarily. So I don't see any problem with that. Not just him having that conversation, but also him publicly talking about that conversation.
I also love the fact that he said that Matt Patricia's response was like, yeah, just don't go past the quarterback. You can do whatever you want. Just don't go past the quarterback. And yeah, you can do whatever you want as long as you don't put it at a disadvantage. I think he has not been productive the way that I think we expected him to be productive this year. And I think his comments last Wednesday night shined a light on why he has not been productive. And that context is very, very necessary. Texas had a mobile quarterback. Ohio had a mobile quarterback. Washington had a mobile quarterback. Illinois kind of had a mobile quarterback, right? So 4 of your 6 games against power FBS opponents have been against teams where the defensive line is not being asked to go get after the quarterback. They're being asked to cage him in, set the edge. And what that is allowed for is Arvell Reese has 5.5 sacks. Hayden McDonald has 3 sacks because sometimes you're just killing the pocket from within. Sonny Styles does not have a sack this year, which is kind of crazy. Jermaine Matthews on a blitz has a sack. Caden Curry has a lot of the sacks because when they're caging him in, this is not to take away from Caden Curry, by the way. Caden Curry is a monster, but he's also been the beneficiary of being the guy who gets to finish off a sack a lot of the time. And Kenyatta Jackson has not always been the beneficiary of that, which is why 9 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, and 2.5 sacks. If now you're going to play more teams like Minnesota, more teams like Wisconsin, like Ethan Grunkemeyer isn't the runner that Drew Aller would have been. So there's going to be opportunities to get after the passer. Plus, he's a young dude who's barely played in football. You probably want Kenyatta and Caden to just feast on that. Purdue, not really a mobile quarterback. UCLA, you probably pull it back again and go, listen, like, let's, cage in Nico. He literally has no receivers. It's going to be his legs or nothing. Rutgers, you probably can get after him again. Michigan, you probably pull it back again and go, nope, we're going to cage him in. We're going to contain the edge. And then you get to the playoff, and Fernando Mendoza is not necessarily the greatest runner in the world, so they probably can go get after Fernando Mendoza. And then the playoff is just going to be game-by-game basis. But I think I enjoyed it, one, because he wasn't saying it from a place of frustration. It was just like, hey, man, yeah, like, I'm doing what they're asking me to do, and I get why they're asking me to do this. Look at the type of quarterbacks we're playing. It's probably not smart to just be using spin moves to try to go get after a quarterback and whatnot. But if we're going to play more drop back passers, I would like the opportunity to go get the passer. Because no, sacks are not everything. Sacks make people money. And Kenyatta Jackson is trying to make himself some money this year because he's trying to go get drafted in the NFL draft in April. So I had no problem with it. I think the way he talked to us about it last Wednesday was probably the way that conversation went with Matt Patricia and with Larry Johnson. It wasn't disrespectful and it wasn't him pouting. It was just simply, hey, man, I'm doing what I got to do to help us win games. Can I do a little bit that's going to help me in my future, but also help us win games?
I'm trying to remember the last time we spoke to Kenyatta before that, but like it's not like he came to the microphone after the Washington game and was like he said it before the Wisconsin game, before facing a quarterback where you can get after him a little bit, right? So like it's not like he's been recklessly putting this out there and trying to do this against Parker Navarro or Damon Williams. Like he's talking about this stuff before they go play Wisconsin. Like I think that also shows that he has an understanding of when it's appropriate and when it's not.
And you know what happened? He got after the passer. He had 3 pressures and a sack.
He was outstanding.
Yeah. I think he was a little antsy at times because he did have the false start. He also got held where the guy was literally dragging his helmet off of his shoulders. So it kind of goes both ways. But yeah, it's if he had asked to do that, they'd given him the opportunity to do that, and then he went out there and was like, hush it, Kenyatta, you're just pouting. No, hey, we're winning games. I know how we can add another element to this defense that will help us continue to win more games down the line. If I'm able in 3rd and long situations to be a little bit more unleashed with a little bit more freedom to use my pass rush moves, because I spent 4 years developing them with Larry Johnson. I just want to use them on Saturdays. Yeah, don't go past the quarterback, and you can do whatever you want. Cool. 3 pressures in the sack. Thanks, Matty P. I love this guy. I'm going to save the Matt Patricia Jim Knowles conversation for when we get close to Penn State game. I do not think Ohio State should kick another field goal unless it literally has no other choice but to kick a field goal.
Are you talking about you're talking about in like matchup games?
Yes.
Yeah, because I think when I was rewatching it, I was thinking to myself, the field goal that Jaden Fielding missed, I think against a playoff opponent, they go for it. I wonder if they're just using these situations to continue testing Jaden Fielding. And even if him missing or making a 38-yarder doesn't necessarily give you some kind of conclusion on him, it's reps for him because at some point you probably will need him to make a field goal. Right? As good as that offense was, they needed a field goal against Notre Dame to really put that game away, right? Otherwise, Notre Dame was going to get the ball back down 8 with, I don't remember how much time was left. It would have been tough, but it would have been a 1-possession game. So I feel like giving him opportunities is not a bad thing, but I really hope that mentality goes away against Michigan, Indiana, and whoever in the playoff, like you said, unless you need to kick a field.
I just think that looking back on those drives, what is more worth your time at this point? Allowing Jaden Fielding to keep showing you who he is, or a team that's still a little shaky when you get to the red zone? I'd rather you use those snaps to improve your red zone execution, especially if it's going to end up being the same result, that if you fail, you end up with 0 points. I'd rather you take the option where at least if you succeed this time, you get 4 extra points for it.
When Fielding made his second field goal, so he missed the second one, and then he made one in the third quarter.
Yes.
Honestly, in hindsight, I maybe would have trotted out Corville. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Why not give him,
Exactly.
you're up a ton. Why not try him there?
I think the next 2 weeks they should just have an open competition at kicker every day.
I'll share a story on the kicking front. In 20, I believe it was 2021, Mississippi State lost the game at Arkansas that they lost by, I think they lost by 3, and they had 3 field goals missed. And Mike Leach, after the game, like, his opening statement was that Mississippi State was hosting open tryouts for kickers for like any student. And I don't know. I mean, maybe we're there with Ohio State. I don't know. There's got to be someone on campus that can boot it. I mean, the soccer team is always pretty good.
I'm just not saying it has to be a strength, but right now it's a weakness that he's taking the field and you're not ever really sure. And I get it. Most of the time he makes it. But when you missed, listen, here's the deal. He has not missed a ton of field goals in his career at Ohio State. And he hasn't necessarily missed a ton this season either. This year, he is 8 of 10, and he's 29 of 29 on extra points. He hasn't been terrible, but the problem is you missed 2 against Michigan last year, and you lost the game by 3 points. And again, this is not us trying to ever absolve the real blame being on the offensive coaching staff and what the offensive game plan they chose to take for that game. It does not change the fact that this is the Throw the You Know What Ball podcast. It doesn't change any of that. But we're still having a very different conversation coming off of that game about how they approach things if he just makes 2 field goals, chip shot field goals. Do we still maybe critique the game plan? Yes. But at least we're critiquing it while also saying Ohio State and Oregon are getting ready to play each other in a rematch in Indianapolis. And not Ohio State sitting at home. We're 55% sure they're going to get a home game, but let's see how this next week shakes out. We're not having week-long conversations about, hey, what if they lose to Tennessee? Is Ryan Day going to lose his job? Like the tone of the 30 days between the Michigan game and the first playoff game are very different if they just make 2 chip shot field goals. So when that knowledge is in your head, it is a big deal that you're 8 of 10. It's a really big deal, especially when you also are pairing that with the red zone is still not a strength for the offense. And if Ohio State's using every Saturday as like a scrimmage, essentially, right now where they're working on stuff, I would rather them spend that time working on the red zone.
Yeah, and you really couldn't have asked for better conditions at Wisconsin.
Like, that's probably the best day Madison, Wisconsin has seen in a long time.
It was outstanding.
Like, seriously. It looked like, no, I'm not going to say it looked like the Rose Bowl. That's just disrespectful to the Rose Bowl. But
they honored their Rose Bowl team, though.
They did honor their Rose Bowl team. It was beautiful. The autumn leaves were out, not a cloud in the sky until we had to drive home, and Stefan had to drive back to our hotel through a monsoon. But it's just like, it's not about the 50-yarders. It's about like the 40. It's not automatic. And there are a lot of programs around the country who have automatic on their special teams, and they just do not have that. Are we worried about the special teams costing them a ring? And that's not just a Jaden Fielding conversation. That's He can barely punt the ball past 42 yards conversation. Brendan I think, has looked better as a punt returner as of lately, but he still had a couple of them where it's like, it worked out, but how about you just don't catch that and just let it go into the end zone? Leroy Roker missed the tackle on a punter on what was not a fake punt. That was just a punter taking advantage of an opportunity. Are we to the point now if Ohio State doesn't win a national championship, it's because its special teams had a blunder at the wrong time?
Yeah, I mean, I won't say that's the only reason, but I would not be surprised, right? Like, I'm not going to predict Ohio State loses a playoff game because, someone muffed the punt. But I think there is reasonable concern that if they don't get special teams cleaned up, it could play a big factor in winning or losing a game, right? And kicking is obviously part of that. So, yeah, absolutely. I won't predict Ohio State loses because of a special teams blunder because that's hard to predict. But I mean, out of the 3 phases, it's not even close which one you're the most worried about. It's special teams. It's just, I don't know, man. It's maddening to see it because it's just always something. Like, that's the thing is, like, we talk about Jaden Fielding. Okay, well, it's not always an issue because he's 8 out of 10. We talk about punt return. Okay, it's not always an issue. Brandon just had that fumble that one time. And we talk about the fake punt. Like, oh, it's not always an issue. Leroy, like, Roker just missed that tackle that one time. Like, it's always something different. I think I said that, I think earlier this season, maybe the first bye week, I talked about that. Like, it's every week it feels like there's a different part of special teams that screws up. And I think the part that's like kind of concerning is Brandon Inniss is a veteran for you. Jaden Fielding is a veteran, right? Like, Roker making a mistake, it's like, okay, that's a young guy out there. But, like, there's been veterans that have contributed to some of these issues, and it kind of leaves you scratching your head. It's, I don't know, man. For a program that's this elite at everything else compared to literally every other team in the country, and then as special teams, they just can't figure it out. It doesn't make sense. Tegra Shabola, veteran guy, running out late against Minnesota to get in formation, and you're taking, you're using a timeout. Like, you're like that could cost you a game. Using a timeout because your right guard wasn't on the field for field goal coverage or protection. Yeah. Like, okay, and now suddenly it's a 2-minute drill. It's like, hey, Julian's saying you have 30 seconds, but you only have one timeout left to go get us into field goal range. When then we're gonna miss the field goal.
Yeah, it's the thing that's not a big deal until it's a big deal, right? It's like having a pimple on your face. It's like, all right, it'll go away. Wait, no, prom is tomorrow, and I have a pimple on my face. So that got negative really quickly. But it's just, again, everything else is so elite about this team, or is at least progressing in a direction towards elite. And it feels like this is like year 4 in a row where we're like, I feel like there's a new issue with special teams every week. It's never just one thing. It's a new thing every time we have this conversation. And the problem is, you say that if someone told you, hey, they worked special teams, it's very, very significant for them. Nothing about what happens on Saturday validates that, even though we have all seen enough practices over the last 2 years. We see more punt periods than literally anything else.
Yeah, I think the part of it, too, is like the game has evolved and like Ohio State's not there yet, right? Like, it used to be the joke of like college kickers, and like Auburn and Missouri like put that on display, and Michigan and Washington both had kickers with low moments. But like, I don't know, man, college kickers are out here making 60-yarders now. Like, the game has changed. You turn, like, Brandon Aubrey's in the NFL making like 70-yarders. Like, the game as a whole is evolving. The NFL's taking a step forward, and the college game is too when it comes to kickers. And Ohio State kind of seems stuck in the past.
Why is it a problem? Because against Texas, how many times did Ohio State have to start within its own like 15-yard line, start a drive? And it worked out there, but it's not the place you want to necessarily live. Okay, that's defensive special teams. I think those are two opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of everything's amazing. Here's how we can make it more amazing too. Everything is crazy. Can we just be normal here? Let's take our first break, and then we'll switch over to the offensive side, where it's, I think, more about approach, more about some coaching decisions here on Buckeye Talk.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like expecting the leadership of a team captain on the football field, but getting a sea captain. You wouldn't settle for just anything for your team. Shouldn't it be the same for your insurance? So don't settle for just any insurance when you can go with a leader. State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Back here on Buckeye Talk, Stephen means Stefan Krajisnik on the Leave No Doubt pod. We have no doubt about the defense. We have a lot of doubt in the special teams. And that's just like the reality of the situation. I don't think I have doubt in Ohio State's offense, but I do have intrigue about what we saw on Saturday, Stefan, and how much of that was about team-specific game plan versus we finally made it, right? We're here. They're finally going to do the thing that we've been asking them to do. And the reason why I don't is because 42 throws, 28 runs, where Julian Sand got sacked once. I think he had 2 scrambles. and they had a designed run for him at one point. He had a QB keeper in this game. They let him show off his wheels. So if you take out Julian Sands' runs, so actual like he handed the ball off to somebody, it's 23 carries. It's 9 for Isaiah West, 10 for Bo Jackson, and 2 for Julian Sands. So it's actually even less than that. It's 21 carries for actual running backs. And we were even talking about the opening drive. They had 8 plays, 7 of them were throws. And it was ironic because the one run went for -1 yards. It was literally the first drive against Tennessee where I went, this is awesome. 7 passes and 1 unnecessary run, and look at what happened. Is this it? Is this what we are expecting to see from Ohio State for the next 5 games and then through the college football playoff? Or was there something about Wisconsin being a terrible pass defense and a at least okay run defense that this was more about this game plan for Wisconsin or the game plan against Minnesota? And we should not walk away from this thinking that every single game, if they run 35 plays in the first half, 27 of them are going to be throws.
I guess the answer is probably a boring one of it's a mix of both. I think Wisconsin's defense, especially their pass defense, allows you to do kind of whatever you want it to do, especially with what Ohio State has at receiver and at quarterback. That said, I think when we talk about tinkering and experimenting and trying different things out, I don't think we can just, fully exclude when they do, the thing that we think is best for them. Right. And I think this was probably another part of that of like, you've seen what it looks like with all these different runs and these different packages and this and that. And like, okay, what's it now look like when you're going up against, poor pass defense, and you can kind of air it out. I think if nothing else, Ohio State can walk out of this game telling itself. So through 3 quarters, they had 38 pass attempts and 20 rushing attempts. So about 65.5% of their plays were passes, if I'm doing my math correctly there. I don't know if that's what it's going to look like every game in a matchup game, but I think Ohio State at least knows, hey, if we need to do that, we can. And if we point back to some of the games early in the season, I think they could look back and say, hey, if we need to go more 12 personnel or 13 personnel, we can, right? Or we can. So I think this is all kind of part of the tinkering process. Just because this is what we think their fastball is doesn't mean that it can't be worked on. It can't be improved on. It can't be something they put on film and say, hey, this works and this doesn't work. So this kind of felt like tinkering on the whole other side of the spectrum from where they were maybe against Washington or Illinois at times. Yeah. But it's scary to think that that's what it could look like because it's pretty damn dominant when they go that way.
He threw it 26 times in the first half. He had his first 2 starts of his career, he didn't even have 26 throws for the game. He threw it 26 times in the first half. He threw it 27 times against Illinois, 27 times against Minnesota, 28 times against Washington. This is the most air raid offense. And it wasn't even air raid in terms of like formations and stuff, just in terms of balance. This is, I think, what it should be. I think in a perfect world, I think 65% pass, 35% run is probably where they should live, just based off of their personnel. But I don't know if every game plan will dictate itself towards that's what you should do, because that's also how you become predictable. So I get it. It's just also fun when they do it because their fastball is pretty fast.
I also just like what's funny too is like it's not even necessarily the 65-35 for me. It's the fact that your pass game was so effective that it helped your running.
Right.
Like they ran for, it ended up being 3.5 yards per carry, and it felt a lot better than that.
Because it opened itself up to explosive runs.
Right. And I think you have to take into account here, like Bo Jackson, he only had 2.6 yards per carry, but he gave you 5 receptions for 57 yards. So like you were still giving him touches, even if it wasn't just necessarily handoffs. So
but
I don't know, man. These weapons are elite. And when you get the ball out to them in space, that's your best offense. And whether that's 65% of the time or whatever the split is, it's elite when you do that.
And you know what? I don't have a problem with that. 2-1. Carries to catches for touches for Bo Jackson. He got the regardless of how you break it down, he had 15. It's just 10 of them were on the ground and 5 of them were in the air. TJ Donaldson had 2 carries and 3 catches. James Peoples' only touch was the 5-yard catch on the swing pass, which I guess we can start to transition into that ball. We're still talking about, but it's just, I'm for this. I'm for Bo Jackson if he's going to get the ball 15 to 20 times a game. Okay, 12 to 14 of them are going to be carries most often than not. And then the other 6 to 8 are maybe catches, because Julian Sand seems to like his check down is the running back, and that's where CJ Stroud's check down was in 2021, which is why Travion Henderson had a lot of catches his freshman year. His check down is the right, because when they're giving it to the tight ends, they're pushing the ball down the field. Like he's throwing the Max Clare over the seam down the middle, 30 yards down the field. Mm-hmm. He checks down a lot. And he's not a check down artist. It's just his safety releases the running back. And so because of that, you get TJ Donaldson with 3 catches, Bo Jackson with 5 catches, James Peoples with a catch. Isaiah West will probably get some catches in the next couple of weeks here, which, again, we'll get to running backs in a second. But I don't have a problem with this. I don't have a problem with this distribution. I think it should be 2-to-1 pass the run ratio. And that should also show itself with how the running backs get touches. Because just trying to play in between the tackles all game is not going to get it done. Is it going to always look 36 of 42? Actually, it might look 36 of 42 every single week. This kid is completing 80% of his passes. So, yes, it will look like this every single week. But I don't want to make this part of a Julian Sand conversation. But I just appreciated that it felt like this was the ultimate version of what the Ohio State Brian Hartline with Julian Sand as the quarterback passing attack is going to look like. It's not just play action deep shot or pop pass. It was 21 play action passes, 24 non-play action passes, 5 screen passes. It was 6 shots of 20 plus yards, 8 throws from 10 to 19 yards, which he was 8 for 8 in the intermediate throw. So that was good to see, because I felt like that was the one area where he wasn't necessarily prolific at yet. 20 of 21 from 0 to 9 yards, 5 throws behind the line of scrimmage. There wasn't an area of the field Julian Sand didn't touch. And I think that is what, more than just like, hey, you threw it more than you ran it. No, you were diverse in how you threw it, was the more important variable for me. And it felt like for the first time this year, Brian Hartline and Julian Sand were in complete sync when it came to the passing game. And as a result, a lot of guys ate.
Everything was moving well too. It felt like Brian Hartline was kind of in his element as well. Like, I'm not saying Ohio State used like fewer packages necessarily, because we did still see like a decent amount of 12 personnel. We saw some 13 personnel at Wisconsin. Like, it's not like they just stuck to 11 personnel the whole game. But it felt at times against Illinois and Washington where you're noticing those subs and everything's kind of dragging and moving slow. Like, this kind of felt like everything's moving. Like everything's kind of got a beat to it. And I think it's part of why Julian Sand was playing as well as he was playing.
They ran 70 plays. A team that's averaging 60.3 plays per game purposefully ran 70. So that's to your point. It wasn't. Now, the defense also got 5 3-and-outs in this game, so that plays a role into this as well, because Wisconsin literally could not move the ball. Wisconsin's longest drive before the final drive of the game, when it looked like they were going to ruin the shutout before Aaron Scott took somebody's lights off. 3 plays, 9 yards, 3 plays, 19 yards, 3 plays, 6 yards, 9 plays, 29 yards, 3 plays, 2 yards, 3 plays, 9 yards, 3 plays, 5 yards, 10 plays, 15 yards, and then the final drive, 9 plays, 50. They had one drive over 30 yards and one other drive over 20 yards. So that plays a role in this as well, but 70 plays. So you got your full entree. I was full in the rewatch. I didn't feel like, oh man, they didn't give me time to get dessert, or I only had 1 glass of water because the waiter never came around to refill it. I didn't ever get to my fries. My burger was cold by the time I got to my... No, I was full. If you were an Ohio State fan, I felt like you watched that game from an offensive standpoint, and you were complete. There was nothing more you could have asked for that day, other than Julian Sand maybe getting the ball a little bit higher, so JJ had a touchdown and finally had 100 yards against a Power 4 opponent this year. But that's a nitpicky thing. JJ still got the ball. 9 catches on 13 targets. They got JJ involved. Carnell Tate, 6 catches on 7 targets. Bo, 5 for 5. Max Clare, 5 for 5. Brandon Ennis, 3 for 4, and finally got into the end zone on what I think is my new favorite Julian Sand throw of the season. That was dirty. Yes. The scrambling, the ball placement. This kid, I gotta say, this kid's absurd. He's absurd. Last week when we were doing this podcast, I think not my exact words. I don't want to misquote myself, but I was like, why is Isaiah West getting carries in this game? And it's nothing against Isaiah West. It's just he's not playing this year. Why is he getting carries in this game? And you pushed back on me and said, I don't know. Maybe it's not that. Maybe there's something there that we need to explore. And I'm like, no, man, it's not. Like, why is he getting carries? Give those carries to James Peoples. And now it has me thinking differently about what the running back hierarchy is going to look like. We came into this season thinking it's going to be C.J. Donaldson and James Peoples, and they'll bring Bo Jackson along slowly. Maybe he can make this an interesting 3. And now I'm starting to think that it's going to be 2, and it's going to end up being 2 true freshmen. What is the running back hierarchy right now? Meaning, if they play football on Saturday, if they were to play, what's the running back hierarchy versus what it is by the time they head up to Ann Arbor?
I think what it is right now is what it's going to be when they go to Ann Arbor. I think Bo Jackson is undoubtedly the starter. I think he's their best running back, and I think they know that. And I was almost open to the idea of maybe James Peoples is banged up until he came in and caught that pass. And let me see how many. He ended up with 10 snaps. Yep. I think he had played snaps before that reception, but I was wondering if they were just limiting him, and then they got the ball to him. And I started thinking to myself, okay, this doesn't feel accidental anymore. I think Bo Jackson is the starter. And like, I don't know what the right term for C.J. Donaldson is, because I think he's probably the guy they still trust the most. But I think they just kind of want to use him where they feel he's best fit. And I think they'll mix him in different situations because, you know, they don't want it to be, hey, it's a run when C.J. Donaldson's on the field. So right. I think like we'll see him on more than just a 3rd and 1. Like I think that's why I think I don't want to just say he's a situational guy, because maybe he still is somewhat of another like option at running back because of the different ways that they're going to try to use him, just so he's at least versatile and not, obvious what it's going to be when he's on the field. But I don't know, man. I think it might be Bo Jackson 1, Isaiah West 2, and C.J. Donaldson is kind of somewhere in that mix as well, depending on how they want to use him. I think James Peoples is 4th.
I wanted to do this, and I just kind of ran out of time. I wanted to track all of C.J. Donaldson's snaps in this game because I wanted to see what the scenario was for why he was in the game. Because he played 17 snaps. How many of those were situational? Whether it was 3rd and run or 3rd and long. But situational meaning it's obvious they're definitely running, or it's obvious they're definitely passing. And it's because they want him, the veteran, in those high leverage situations.
11 of the 17 snaps were passing snaps, which is kind of surprising, right?
Because it's probably 3rd and long situations.
Which I was telling you, there was, what was there, like a 3rd and 7? And I looked at you in the press box and I was like, why is C.J. Donaldson in the game right now?
Yeah. I think leverage situations, high leverage situations that are still leaning towards C.J. Donaldson right now, and it's because he's a veteran. He's played over 1,000 snaps in his career. I do wonder if Carlos Loughlin rethinks that, though, because this is also a bye week where you can start to rethink some of the things and how you're using guys, because you did what you did to the first 7 weeks because your options were West Virginia transfer who lost 20, second-year former top 100 recruit who didn't play that much last year, and 2 18-year-olds, one of which who didn't participate in spring practice because he was dealing with an injury from high school. So I get it. If C.J. Donaldson got you through the first 7 weeks of the season, and maybe you were expecting James Peoples to have a bigger role in that, and he has not. But now we're living in this world where Isaiah West looked very good on his carries.
I thought he was awesome. And the fact that Ryan Day, I don't know the last time he specifically recited 2 carries that stood out to him from a player.
9 carries for 55 yards. And he has that Bo Jackson thing in him where he's going to fall forward, and I know that's, we've made a big deal out of, oh my God, the running backs are falling forward. And listen, man, those add up. That extra yard and a half starts adding up when all of a sudden it's 3rd and 2 instead of 3rd and 4.
Also, if you're falling forward, that means that the guy who's tackling you feels you more than if you were just getting knocked back.
Right. You technically won the rep. How did we get here? How did we get to, you just went, I don't know, against Penn State, I think Bo Jackson's going to start and get the most carries, and Isaiah West is going to be second. They're going to sprinkle in C.J. Donaldson. And it wasn't like I was like, I don't know, man. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. I'm just like, yeah, that's about, how did we get here?
Carlos Loughlin knows how to recruit running backs.
He has a good eye, it seems. Because Bo Jackson wasn't a top, I think he's a borderline top 150 recruit. Isaiah West was a 3-star recruit that I don't even think Ohio State got involved. In fact, both of these guys, I don't think Ohio State got heavily involved with them until Carlos Loughlin got here. They had a relationship with Bo Jackson, but Tony Alford wasn't like going hard for him. And then Isaiah West, that is Carlos Loughlin. He made that happen in like a month. And those are not, it's why when Gillis and I do those recruiting pods now, especially with how it is now, like sometimes people say, why am I supposed to get excited about a 3-star? This is why. And it's not like every 3-star is not going to be Chris Olave, but Day keeps telling us the evaluation of players is more important than anything now than at any other point in the history of recruiting. Evaluating, having a good eye is important. And it's because of this. Carlos Loughlin is seeing something in Isaiah West that the rest of the country wasn't seeing. And now he finally got a healthy workload in a road Big Ten game, and he turns 9 carries into 55 yards.
Was Loughlin trying to tell us this when we laughed at him when we said, hey, can Bo Jackson factor into rotation? He's like, listen, all 6 of my guys are ready to go. And we laughed. Maybe he was trying to tell us that Isaiah West was going to factor into this thing. Well, which also, I was looking back on some of the snaps from earlier in the season. Like the first time we really saw Isaiah West, I think, was against Grambling, which is kind of when we started to see everyone. But we saw him a bit. Let me make sure I get this pulled up so it's right. He had 1 snap against Minnesota and then those 3 against Illinois. So, like, he wasn't really emerging on the scene a ton until he did. So, like,
which means,
did we enter the year, like, week 1, like, not just because it was Texas, but just, like, week 1 in general, was Sam Williams-Dixon the 4th running back?
Probably coming into this year because he's been in the
So Isaiah West might have been the 5th running back week 1, and now he's RB.
Potentially. There's an element to him that's very similar to Mylan Graham. And I know like different spots of the hierarchy here, but I would say that, I mean, Bryson Rodgers to Sam Williams-Dixon, there's probably some similarities, even down to the fact that both of them tried to transfer, but then decided not to transfer. But it seems like there's guys behind them who have taken advantage of opportunities. And what you've seen is if you were paying close enough attention, they started sprinkling them. Right? Mylan Graham played 34 snaps against Grambling because, of course, he played 34 snaps against Grambling. If you and I were on the team, we would have played some level of snaps against Grambling. Everybody played against Grambling. He played 2 against Ohio, 5 at Washington, 16 against Minnesota, 8 against Illinois, and now he just played 18 against Wisconsin, where him and Quincy Porter are both rotating in. It's a similar thing as what you just said against Isaiah West. Around the Minnesota game is probably when Isaiah West started doing some things when Carlos Loughlin said, okay, I'm going to keep my eye on that. And he rewarded him with 2 snaps. He followed it up the following week against Illinois, and he's probably still doing some stuff in practice. Okay, I'm going to keep my eye on that some more. He rewards him with 3 snaps, and he gets the ball on all 3 of those snaps. He didn't do much with it, but they also didn't block. The blocking was horrid. But now, that's 2 straight weeks of Isaiah West probably having some really good practices and getting rewarded for it in game situations. And now Carlos Loughlin is looking for somebody who might be able to get some wiggle because Bo's not having the best day on the ground, 10 for 26. You're not giving the ball to C.J. Donaldson, and James Peoples is just not a factor as a running back in terms of carries right now. Hey, Isaiah, go give me something. Here's 9 carries for you. Go give me something. In 14 snaps, he played 14 snaps and got the ball 9 times, and he turned it into 50. Every week he's getting a little bit more. And now here we are, living in a world where 2 true freshman running backs might be Ohio State's top 2. Now, who knows what's going on with James Peoples? We might get to the Penn State game, and this might all flip on its head again, and all of a sudden James Peoples got the ball 17 times against Penn State. But to the point of we all laughed at Carlos Loughlin, this is the second position coach on offense who told us he could play a lot of guys, and we said, yeah, sure. And now they're playing a bunch of tight ends and running backs, and we're all like, I cannot believe we're playing a bunch of tight ends and running backs. That's on us. We probably should have listed a little bit more. Carnell Tate.
I want to say one more thing on the running backs.
Yes, you can.
Again, with the rotation, too, like compared to the Illinois game, it felt like it was in rhythm.
Clean.
Right? Like there. So Isaiah had a sequence in the 4th quarter where, so Ohio State gets the ball with 11:07 to go. Can't remember what the score was in that situation. It was, let's see here. It was right before. It's the drive that led to Ennis' touchdown. So Ohio State was up 27-0. They get the ball. It goes Julian Sain complete to Jeremiah Smith, 26 yards. Casual 26-yard completion that just happens. And then it went Bo Jackson 5-yard run, stays in the game. Bo Jackson 4-yard run. So back-to-back good productive runs. Isaiah West comes in. Isaiah West 6-yard run. Isaiah West 7-yard run. Then we go incomplete pass, completion for 5 yards to James Peoples. That was the James Peoples completion. Isaiah West comes back in 5-yard run, 6-yard run, and then he has a run for 0. consecutive runs. He had a sequence here on one drive. He had 5 carries. 4 of them went for at least 5 yards. Like that's how you get a running back in rhythm, right? Let him stay out there. Let him get some momentum. And that's how you get a drive like that, where you're going gain of 26, gain of 5, gain of 4, 6, 7, 6, 7. Complete 5, 5, 6, 0, 13. Touchdown to Brandon Inniss was a 13-yard. Like all of these plays aside from one went for at least 4 yards. And Isaiah West was a big part of that. And he was with the starters. I mean, Inniss caught a touchdown, and the drive started with a Jeremiah 6 26-yard catch. Like, this is with the starters.
Yeah, the starting offensive line played all but like 2 snaps in this game. So yeah, this is not like garbage time snaps. This is real. And again, I think there's a lot of coaches figuring it out, right? They're figuring out who their best guys are. You got an offensive coordinator trying to figure it out in the art of play calling and figure out how to get into a rhythm there. You've got a tight end coach with a bunch of different options, and he's trying to figure out how to put them all in their best position. One of the things Ryan Day talked about on Saturday was that the idea of like making sure you're putting guys out there to do the things they're good at. And there's a process to figuring what that is like on game day. And I think the tight ends have had their opportunities to tinker with that. And I think the running backs right now are getting their opportunities for Carlos Lachlan to, even if it's maddening, okay, let's throw CJ Donaldson in this scenario. Let's see what happens. Let's throw Bo in this scenario. Let's see what happens. Let's throw James Peoples in this scenario. And let's see what happens. Let's throw Isaiah West now in this scenario. Let's see what I think he thinks he has 4 guys he can play. And now it's a conversation of which of the 4 deserve to play the most. And if the last 2 weeks are any indication of what the answer might be, I think it's 2 true freshmen in your West Virginia transfer. And I'm not sure we were expecting to get there, but we're here. I mean, if that maximizes your run game, at least from the running back standpoint, by all means, let's get there. And I think we process point, like we use these words on Saturday in one of our YouTube videos. Go listen to or go watch our YouTube content at Buckeye Talk on YouTube. And essentially all of us were using some variation of the word process. And I think all of us were thinking that the process had been solved already coming into the season with some of these things. And so we're like, why don't you guys just go 100 miles per hour? It's like, because we're still figuring this out, man. This is a season is a living organism. It's not a linear thing. We're all over the place with this thing. Right? Like the only position group that knows 100% who its top 3 guys are the wide receivers. And even we questioned it for a little bit. So like, yeah, we're figuring it out, man. We get 12 opportunities to do this. So we're figuring it out too. Carnell Tate. I don't know what to do with Jeremiah Smith. I do not think Jeremiah Smith is having a bad season. He's literally not. He's leading the conference in catches this year. And he's never had less than 5 catches in a game. But he has not had 100 yards or more against a Power 4 opponent yet. His games, 6 catches for 43 yards against Texas, 5 catches for 119 against Grambling and 2 scores, 9 for 153 and a score against Ohio, plus I think he had a rushing touchdown for 17 yards in that game as well. He also had a punt return that was not great, which is why I'm glad they don't put him back there anymore. 8 for 81 and a score against Washington, 7 for 67 and 2 scores against Minnesota, 5 for 42 and a touchdown against Illinois, and they almost killed him on a end-around run because 2 people forgot to block. Let's not have that happen again. And then he had 9 for 97 against Wisconsin. No score. They did try to get it to him a couple of times. I think Julian, the ball was just too low on one of them, and the other one, I think the Wisconsin defender just made a good play. Carter Hallman's a really good cornerback. He's not having a great year by PFF standards, but he's a very good cornerback. So this is not about how come JJ's not getting the ball. They can't seem to get explosive with Jeremiah. And what it's done is it's fine because he's averaging 12.3 yards per catch right now. Last year, JJ averaged 17.3 yards per catch. So he's 5 yards down from where he was last year. And the answer to that isn't some like ball knower, I'm just more knowledge IQ thing. No, it's just because teams are putting a cornerback on him and then shading coverage to his side because you'd be stupid to just let Jeremiah Smith do what he did to you last year for 16 more games and expect to win football games or even make it competitive, which is why I have enjoyed watching them diversify how they get him the ball. But he is still the biggest threat downfield, one-on-one. There's nothing you can do about for 225. And if you win some, you might just win some. It has opened up Carnell Tate, who has 34 catches for 587 yards. So he's at 17.3 yards per catch. He has become their downfield threat and 6 touchdowns. Do we think that ever shifts? Because we just watched Carnell Tate catchable. And again, I'm trying to wait on the Julian Sand thing, but that Carnell Tate catch was ridiculous over two people. But also, Julian Sand's feeling himself a little bit because you got to put that's Tampa too high. You have to put that in perfect position. And maybe your wide receiver comes down with it. But does there ever come a game where teams go, we're sick of Carnell doing this? Maybe this is the game where a safety goes, I'm not going with number 4 this game. I'm going with number 17. Hey, DB, you're on your own.
I don't know. Like, that's how good JJ is that I don't know if there's going to be a team that does that, right? Like, do you just hope Carnell is not making ridiculous catches? Yeah, it's just, I think maybe something that you and I have talked about, I don't know if we've talked about on the pod, but like maybe one of the more important elements of Ohio State's season so far, specifically as it pertains to the offense, is that Julian Sand and Carnell Tate have a clear chemistry. Yes. And Will and Carnell just didn't have that. Will had it with JJ and he had it with Emeka, and they were both kind of able to, balance or bounce off each other, while Carnell it never was really in sync, or at least never really felt in sync with Will Howard. And I think that's not a problem right now with Julian Sand. I think they're on the same page. I think Julian's on the same page with JJ as well. And both those guys are kind of feasting, and they're just this 1-2 punch that feels unstoppable. And maybe Brandon Inniss is the guy that isn't quite on the, but like the Brandon Inniss thing feels more like Sand just goes through his first couple reads and those guys are open. And that's like, it's not like Will was like underthrowing Carnell or like throwing it out of bounds. And like, that was kind of out of sync. Like when Julian throws to Inniss, it's working. He's just not throwing it to him a ton. But Julian's got to figure it out right now with Carnell and obviously with Jeremiah too. And I think both those guys are just feasting right now. And I'm not sure if safeties are going to really change which way they shade, just because, I don't know, man. It's Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, I think with the Inniss thing, 14 catches for 113, and he finally got in the end zone on Saturday. It's your wide receiver 3 and 4 are going to be some combination of your tight end, running back, and wide receiver. And I think it's so weird because this is the first time where the wide receiver isn't one of those two. Instead, it's the running backs and the tight ends. And I don't think it's not a bad thing. It's just, again, you're used to the slot receiver. You're having 55 plus catches, and Brandon Inniss is probably going to have like 35 catches. And granted, he might still get to 55. Right? Carnell Tate had 50 catches last year. So if they play 16 games, he still might get to 50 catches. Who knows? I think I'm excited for Ohio State to play a good team again. Because I feel like there's a lot of stuff with JJ they're just like not getting to because they haven't needed to get to it yet, right? Him playing in the slot a little bit more. Him having opportunities where he gets to do a little bit more after the catch. Because like still, I'm saying all this. The only thing that's down for Jeremiah Smith right now is his yards per catch. He's averaging more yards per game this year, 86 in comparison to 82.2 last year. And as I said, he's 49 catches already this year, which leads the conference. So he's less than 30 catches, or he's 27 catches away from what he had as a true freshman last year. He's halfway almost towards his yardage total from last year. So he's been plenty productive. It's just the deep ball, and it's not because Julian can't hit the deep ball. I mean, the dude's the most efficient deep ball thrower in the country right now. It's more just teams have decided, Jeremiah Smith, you don't get to kill us 40 yards down the field anymore, at least not where it's you and just a defensive back. And so it stands out a little bit more when on Saturday it felt like Julian was off by just a little bit, because you don't get these opportunities that much with JJ anymore because he's constant. It's like Stephen Curry. How often does Stephen Curry just get a wide open 3-point shot?
Not very often. You let him take the layup.
I mean, he's still shooting 40%, so it's not like he's missing them now. It's just he gets less opportunities to get the easy gimmies. So it's a little bit louder when he does get. You're probably right though. Yeah, people are gonna go, well, Carnell's good. I just don't want JJ to do that to us.
I will say, if you're a safety like this is your last opportunity to shade toward Carnell. You can shade toward JJ next year. He'll be back.
That's true.
It could be, depending on how good or bad of a safety you are, it could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to shade toward Carnell.
Put it on tape, man. I think it's sad. I think it's ironic that the two best NFL draft prospects on this team are Arvell Reese and Jeremiah Smith. And we are going to get significantly more opportunities.
Caleb Downs is probably a top 10 pick.
I know. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Arvell goes before, just because of positional value.
Fair enough.
That's all it is.
I mean, I'm not going to push back on it too much.
Yeah. This is not about who I think is the better football player. It's just the NFL. Listen, he's 6'4", 230, man, and is bullying offensive tackles with one arm.
He quietly had 2 tackles for loss and a sack against Wisconsin. Like,
Okay,
all right,
no.
dude.
He quietly, in terms of we looked at the box and was like, oh, man, Arville had a good game. That sack was not quiet.
Yeah, that's true. That it was like, the Wile E. Coyote, just the Roadrunner, they're going into the wall. Like that's what it looked like when Arvell Reese just like stood up the quarter.
Arvell is mean. He's very mean to offensive tackles and pass pro running backs. I almost want to ask Travion Henderson about, hey, man, you're really good at this. Did you have to think twice in practice when Arvell was coming at you full speed? Right guard. Mark it down. Who's Ohio State starting right guard against Penn State?
Tegra Shabola.
You sound so excited.
I've said on here many times until I'm proven otherwise. I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Padilla was a starter by Michigan. I'll say that.
Do you not think that, because when's the first time, to apply the same logic where you just applied to Isaiah West here, Josh played 20 snaps against Grambling because, again, everybody played against Grambling. He played 19 against Minnesota, 14 against Illinois, and he played 26 on Saturday. And like Ethan, he's already jumped Ethan and Yawa. I think we can firmly say he spent the first half of the season jumping Ethan and Yawa. Is there not room here for, okay, we gave him a little bit against Minnesota. We gave him a little bit more against Illinois. And then we kind of threw him out there to the Wolves against Wisconsin. Kind of, because Tegra still played 44 snaps because they played 70 plays, so we got to see more of Josh Padilla. I almost want to mark down Josh Padilla is going to be the starter because you have 3-game sample size and now you get 2 weeks to sit with.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like this would be the perfect opportunity to do it.
That was not good on Saturday.
No, it was actually really bad, and I don't think it was. I don't think it was very helpful that Philip Daniels also probably had his worst game of the season.
You're right, and Phillips, I feel like it's like, all right, you had a bad game. Like, neither of us are at a point where it's like, okay, hey, they need to try out Justin Terry here. It's just like, no, you had a bad game. Let's lock back in here, right? This has been a lot, right? This is the most that Philip Daniels has played in his career so far, so lock back in here. There's 2 things happening here, because I don't think Josh Padilla has been awesome. I just think he's been fine, which he's a guard, and anybody will say that. You want to know if a guard's been doing his job or not? Are you talking about him? Do you notice him? And I don't notice Josh Padilla out there. You notice Tegra constantly. And yeah, you brought up earlier the substitution thing that happened against Minnesota, but like, I'm trying to wait on Julian. Julian Sand showed some pocket movement for the first time this season that I'm not really sure I realized he had until Saturday. He also hadn't had to show it until Saturday. A lot of that was evading the guy coming from his right side. When you get 2 weeks to sit through it and there's a reason you keep rotating that spot. And it's not just to get you to the finish line. Yeah, you did it last year, but you're not doing it across the board this year. The only place you're rotating right now is right guard. Luke Montgomery, this has been multiple weeks in a row where if there's 60 offensive snaps, there's 4 guys playing 60 snaps and 1 guy playing 40. Everybody else played 7 with the starting offensive line on Saturday. And then 1 guy didn't. And I'm wondering if this is just like with Lorenzo Styles, Jermaine Matthews, Devin Sanchez situation, with the running back situation, you now get a chance to come up for air and breathe, and you have 7 games of a data sample and 2 weeks to prepare for a game that all of a sudden is not a top 3 matchup. I think this is the time to pull the plug because then you get 5 regular season games to really solidify your offensive line. And it doesn't mean you don't still rotate Tegra in, but I'm wondering if this is the game on Saturday next Saturday where you see it flip, where it's been Tegra's the starter and somebody's rotating in with him, but now it's Josh Padilla as the starter and Tegra Shabola's rotating.
Yeah, it almost kind of links back to our conversation about special teams and kicker, where if Jaden Fielding was making all his 38-yarders and missing his 50-yarders, we weren't really saying anything, right? And it's like if Tegra was, just average, we wouldn't say anything. But it's been penalties like consistently, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like there was like that's what it kind of started to feel like with Edric, right? Where it was like, okay, like a couple offsides, like that's kind of silly, and then it's like, okay, like a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, like the next game, like it starts to pile up, and you're like, what's going on here? It's kind of felt that way with Tegra, where it's like it's not one false start penalty, it's a false start penalty, and then it's a late substitution, and then it's getting beat up at the line of scrimmage, and like these things start to pile up where it's like they no longer feel like one-offs. And yeah, like you said, I mean, there's one spot on the offensive line that has a lower snap count or one guy that from the starting offensive line that has a lower snap count than the rest. Like, I don't know. This is the one area where I don't think we're nitpicking either. Like this matters. Like this matters. This could this could cost Ohio State a game if right guard is not better.
Yeah, because all it takes is one defensive line with some dudes up the middle and constantly, like, I get it. CJ Stroud looked awesome when Jalen Carter was coming down his neck against Georgia all those times. But you don't want your quarterback to have to do that every other snap. When it feels like a healthy back and forth, fine. But if every time you're in a 3rd and 6, you're worried that Julian Sand's not going to have a clean pocket to step into, that's now a problem.
Yep.
And you can't run the ball to that side. You literally, like, they're running pistol stretch to the boundary a lot because they can't run to the right now. Like, your center left guard, I don't think Austin Saraveld and Luke Montgomery and Carson Hinsman had a great day on Saturday. I think the offensive line had its worst day on Saturday. But because of how well but they've also played so well throughout most of the season for the most part that you can say this is a one-off versus this is something that has stacked week after week after week, and now it's finally in. I mean, this is probably maybe harsh to say, but this is like James Franklin, right? If you keep stacking losses against good teams, you're eventually going to swing one way or the other, right? And now he doesn't have his job anymore. And not to say that's I don't know if that's a perfect analogy here, but it's just you're constantly flirting with bad play, negative play. Eventually, if everybody else also has a bad day, your light shines that much brighter because everybody else is also having a bad day.
Yeah, it was not great against Wisconsin, to say the least.
Yeah, I think Josh Patias. I think it's just time. It's time to do that.
We saw signs of this last year. It's like they could have just rotated Luke Montgomery and Austin Serval at left guard if they felt that right guard was fine.
Yeah, and they didn't do it. And I'm wondering, like, but do you learn from that lesson this time around? And you use this second bye week. Because what's the most significant decision they made coming out of a bye week last year that wasn't injury influenced?
That wasn't because it was Oregon and then bye week and then Zen Mahalski starting at left tackle, but that was because Simmons was out for the season. I mean, you did have somewhat of a decision with Mahalski because you and I, we were talking like, do you move Donovan to left tackle or do you start Zen Mahalski?
Yeah.
So I guess that was somewhat of a decision, but
it was a decision they didn't have to actually make a decision on because he got hurt, but like there was no way they were going to play him back.
Well, they did. Actually, the biggest decision was probably the stretch between Michigan and the first playoff game. That's when they decided to start doing the rotation at guard, like full go. Like, remember the playoff game against Tennessee was the first time we were like, wait, what are they doing?
Yeah.
So, like, that wasn't a bye week. That was a bye month, but that was probably the biggest decision they had to make.
Kind of the same concept, though. No, it's not 30 days, but it's 14. So It's 14 where you've already started working the guy who was probably going to take the job in. So I think that's got to happen. This has reached a tipping point where it's not working. It's not working, and it's going to cost you a game if you keep doing this. Okay, let's take our final break, and then let's brag about Julian Sand and get hyperbolic here on Buckeye Talk.
Welcome to Sephora.
I'm looking for a perfume that's not too perfumey.
I got you.
Serum moisturizer or moisturizer serum.
Let's get into layering.
My concealer is making me look worse?
Sounds like the wrong shade. Let's get you matched.
There's only one store that really gets what you're going for. Get beauty from people who get beauty. Only at Sephora.
Hi, Let's get you a basket.
Okay, Chad. Today you're gonna drive the all-electric Toyota BZ.
But my electric vehicle phobia. I'm not ready, Dr. Ross.
I believe in you.
Oh my gosh. We're inside it.
Try to take deep breaths, okay?
The ventilated seats, they're touching me.
You can do this, Chad. Drive the car. How do you feel, Chad?
I feel cured. Woohoo! I'm doing it!
The all-electric BZ. One drive can change your mind. Toyota. Let's go places.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means, Stefan Krajisnik. This is your Leave No Doubt pod. I think I don't have doubts about the offense. I don't know what the word is, but I would like them to make some decisions that are not easy. Some like tough love decisions, almost. Because you got to do what's best for your team. And even if that means benching a guy who was a full-time starter for you a year ago. Or it's like completely revamping the way we thought your running back hierarchy was going to look. And now all of a sudden, two guys who have been here for less than 11 months are now your top two guys. So I've got some numbers here. Dwayne Haskins through 7 games. 75 of 242. That's 72.3 completion percentage. 9.6 yards per attempt. 333 yards per game. For 2,331 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. He got the New York. Didn't win it, though. Justin Fields in 2019, he's going to have the least amount of throws of anybody because he also had J.K. Dobbins. 116 of 164, that's 70.7 completion percentage, 9.1 yards per attempt, and 213.1 yards per game. 1,492 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He got to New York. C.J. Stroud in 2021, he's the only one that lost a game in his first 7 games, by the way. He was 6-1. 47 of 219, 67.1 completion percentage. He ended up over 70% for the season, but he had a rough start, so it took him some time to get there. 10.4 yards per attempt, 324.3 yards per game, 2,270 total yards for 23 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. These are just passing numbers. I didn't include the rushing numbers because Justin Fields is the only one with relevant rushing numbers. Julian Sand, 156 of 195, 80% completion percentage on the year. That's freaking ridiculous. 9.7 yards per attempt. He's averaging 267.4 yards per game. He's up to 1,872 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. And another thing I want to throw at you is the highest completion percentages in the history of college football. Bo Nix was at 77.4% at Oregon in 2023, but he also threw a lot of bubble screens. Mac Jones was at 77.3%. in 2020 at Alabama. Colt McCoy at Texas in 2008, 76.7%. And then Joe Burrow, 76.3% in 2019 at LSU. Julian Sand is almost 3% higher than the number one guy on that list. Is Julian Sand's ceiling? And I did not include, I didn't include Kyle and Will Howard in this conference because they're not at this table. With all due respect to Howard winning a national title and Kyle McCord losing 1 game as a starter here, even if it was to Michigan, they are not at the table that these three other quarterbacks are at. Heisman Trophy caliber first-round draft picks. Is Julian Sand's ceiling higher than those 3?
I don't know, but it's probably on par at the worst. I mean, what was CJ Stroud's ceiling?
Number 2 pick.
National title contender. Yeah, national title contender, Heisman finalist, and a top 2 draft pick. You know? So it's like Do I think Julian Sand's ceiling is Heisman winner, national champ, first overall pick? Sure, if that then it's better than what CJ Stroud's ceiling was, I guess. So it's tough, but I will say he's in a great position to beat Michigan in his first year as a starter. And that goes a long way. Specifically with where the rivalry is right now and what it means. We were talking about this after the game and Julian Sand's Heisman campaign and what it's going to look like, and being the starting quarterback of an undefeated team will most likely at least get you there. I think we saw last year with Dylan Gabriel. Granted, I think this year's Heisman class is a little bit better than last year's. Last year's top 2, I think, were pretty solid. But after that, it was kind of like, we'll see who gets there. So Dylan Gabriel was always going to get there as, the quarterback of the only undefeated team.
Yeah.
So Julian's, beating Michigan obviously gets him there in and of itself because he'll be the quarterback of an undefeated team, most likely. But I think nationally people know the narrative very well. And if Julian Sand looks anything like Julian Sand that we've seen so far, it won't be, he's just playing well because he's got these kind of weapons around him. It will be a narrative type win that game could be his Heisman moment. So that's his case for the Heisman, to do something that those guys didn't do is win the Heisman, right? Michigan goes a long way in that. And then, winning the national title. I mean, he's got a team that can win a national title. And, he can be. We'll see what his size, what factor that is in the NFL draft. I think the way he's playing, he's at least a first-round pick. Now, is there a quarterback that emerges next season, whoever that may be, I don't know, that emerges and he's got better measurables and he goes, Julian goes what was Bo Nix, 10th overall, 9th overall, something like that?
Yeah.
If he's in the Bo Nix realm as opposed to the CJ Stroud realm, so be it. Size is going to matter there, I'm sure. But I don't know. I mean, the ceiling is at least on par with those guys, and those guys were terrific.
Yeah, so maybe that's because it's not who's better conversation, though I guess we can do that too. I think he doesn't have a but about him yet, and that's why I brought up the pocket movement stuff on Saturday. Is I think the only thing we hadn't really seen is mobility. We'd seen little spurts of it, right, where he gets out, he squirts out, and he gets 2 yards, and it's kind of what it is. And that's not to say it's a weapon. He's not Justin Fields, where they're running read option. Although they literally were in read option with him on Saturday, so they could do it. But Justin Fields running for 1,000 yards in an NFL season. Julian Sand's not running for 1,000 yards in an NFL season. Dwayne Haskins' arm was special. He could not run. He was a stick. CJ Stroud's arm was special. He could run. They asked him not to. I think Julian Sand's athleticism in terms of what's necessary for Ohio State's quarterback is probably on par with CJ Stroud. I think CJ's a better athlete, but in terms of what is actually necessary, I don't think there's anything that CJ Stroud did at Ohio State. Let me put it this way. If Julian Sand had to have the Georgia performance that CJ Stroud had, I've seen enough from Julian Sand to be very confident that he could have the Georgia performance. Yeah. And that's the throws down the field, that's the escapability, it's the off-schedule stuff, back to the Brandon Ennis throw. That was literally what CJ Stroud and Marvin Harrison did against Georgia. The scramble, eyes down the field, and he put that bad boy in a place where literally only Brandon Ennis could get it. That's the best throw he's had all year, when you take into account everything that went into it. And he had a similar one against Texas to Carnell Tate in the back of his own end zone, where he had to scramble out and he's got a guy bearing down on him and he's essentially on one foot and he gets it to Carnell Tate. But this one got you 7 points, so this one takes the cake for me. He's a better thrower of the football than Justin Fields. He had like 2 bad throws in this game. He had the one to Jeremiah where you just wanted to be a little higher. And then this is not a bad throw. It's a very difficult throw to make, and I don't think people if you've never been on a football field, I don't think you realize how far these throws are, and it's opposite hash to the sideline, out route throw. That's a very difficult throw to make, and he's been money with that throw, but he had one that just didn't get there on Saturday.
That was also that was the pick against Grambling too, right?
Yeah. So that's like the one, and Justin Fields, Justin Fields' arm was so strong, he just made money off of those all the time. And so but it's also, again, that's not an easy throw to make. It's just such a staple of Ohio State's offense, and they've had quarterbacks who make it look so easy. And so the last 2 years, they have not had quarterbacks who made that look easy. And I think Julian Sand, 75% of the time, he'll be able to make that throw. But the other 25%, you're a little worried about a better DB jumping that route, picking it off. But it's not the biggest deal in the world. But I just think for me, it's really, and this is oversimplifying things, but beat Michigan and he's winning the Heisman. And that's with all due respect to what I have seen from Fernando Mendoza. But Fernando Mendoza can never have the storyline Julian Sand is going to walk into Ann Arbor with, especially if they're 11-0. And he's completing 78% of his passes still.
Mendoza winning a conference title against that defense and beating Ohio State for the first time in 45 years or whatever it is would be there'd be a storyline.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Julian can't do all that and then go lose in the conference championship.
Right.
I'm with you there. It's just, I don't think.
I like the idea of Indianapolis deciding who wins the Heisman.
Yep.
And then we'll see where Ty Simpson is and all that. I feel like we kind of had an idea going into November we would kind of have somewhat of separation, and I think we've gotten that. I think it's those 3 guys right now are in a race.
Yeah, and I think the problem with Ty Simpson is if the other 2 are undefeated, we're not holding the Florida State loss against Alabama in terms of how we view their chances of competing for a national title anymore. Mm-hmm. But if the other 2 guys are undefeated and one of them, the only reason they lost is because they played the other one, it's going to be very difficult for Ty Simpson to not finish 3rd in that race. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but assuming everybody wins out and gets to their conference championship weekends, it's very difficult for Ty Simpson to jump 2 guys who don't have a Florida State loss on their, especially since Florida State's not good anymore. They just don't have a black mark on their resume, at all. Is there anything we're worried about with Julian?
No. Well, it's not so much a worried with Julian as it is. I still don't think Ohio State has played the best of the best as it pertains to singular pass rusher, like a Ruben Bain, a Mikhail Kamara, whatever, go down the list. He hasn't faced an Arbor Reese.
The Colin Simmons erasure is just, wow.
But
different time, right? They weren't using Julian the same way they used him.
But that was outside of this Wisconsin game, that was probably, I don't know, the second worst performance of the year by Ohio State's offensive line. It was good, but they struggled more against Texas and Wisconsin than they did the other teams they faced. Right, so if they start facing better defensive fronts, could a team put some pressure on Julian? We haven't really seen that yet, right?
Yeah,
especially if it's on the right side of the line.
Yeah, man, that's right side of the line is scaring me. It's just boy, oh boy. But at least it's on the side that Julian Sand can see and not his blind side. That'd be a whole nother issue. I just want to see him in some high leverage snaps, and not just because it's 3rd and long or it's a 2-minute drill or it's the red zone. It's just This team is so dominant. He's Matt Jones right now in terms of he's so awesome, but his team is so dominant that, like, I don't know if we're appreciating how awesome he has been, right? Like, how many times in 2020 was Matt Jones under pressure? And it doesn't take away from the level of explosiveness and efficiency he ran that offense. It's just that it's hard to completely appreciate it when it feels like you guys are going through a live practice every Saturday because both sides of the ball are so good. And the only real complaint we have is the running game's a little weird and they cannot for the life of them figure out how to be average at special teams. So that's it. I think for both of us, our concerns are things that just are going to happen with time, which I think is the best place you want to be with your quarterback situation. 614-350-3315. That's Leave No Doubt Pod. No doubts here about Julian Sand. I think this dude's that throw, man. I've been thinking about that throw for 24 hours now. That throw to Brandon Ennis. It was special. Fun stuff coming this week. Live show on Wednesday. I think we're going to do a rants pod this week. We're also going to take a breather later in the week. I think the live show pod Wednesday, that post on Thursday will probably be the last pod we do of the week just to kind of reset because this was a long month. This is only, you understand something. Next Saturday will be the second time in the last 5 weeks that we've slept in our own beds on a Saturday night. It's been a long month. Actually, that's not true for everybody. It's true for most of us.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, some of us, listen, man, duty calls.
I don't know what you just put in people's minds, but get the text, I guess.
Yeah, get the text. Maybe we'll tell you there what we're talking about. 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. The number one Buckeye, 7-0, 4-0 Big Ten play. Will return to the field in 2 weeks to face Penn State. For Stefan Krajisnik, I'm Stephen Meads. Talk to you guys later.